Hello guys, I am Ravikiran Tate. Welcome you all for today's webinar. Today we have the topic of Lean Six Sigma. Those who have tuned LLAGT webinar series for the first time, I would like to tell them I have taken two webinars before this. So request you to learn 5S methodology for lean manufacturing and 8D problem solving methodology from it. As you all know, these topics are related to all types of industry. Today we have come up with a similar topic. The Lean Six Sigma can be used in any type of industry, be it an automobile industry, manufacturing, food processing, pharmaceutical, operational, or a banking. So the Six Sigma methodology is invented in 1980 by Motorola using the DMAC methodology based on the basic thinking of that customer satisfaction is the priority. Later on it is made popular by General Electric, then Ford Motor, then General Motors and Xerox companies. The sigma is a Greek alphabet used for the standard deviation. Then lean thinking was another quality and productivity improvement methodology introduced by Toyota Production System, that is TPS, which is based on the concept of elimination of waste in process. In early days, around 1902, Toyota was in the loom manufacturing business. Every time thread of the loom used to break and they used to stop their machines. That is why the continuous production came in picture and they developed a lean. This is about the background of lean and Six Sigma. Earlier the Six Sigma and lean methodology was used separately, but believe me guys, gone the days where we have a much luxury time, so we need to apply this Lean Six Sigma together. Today's agenda for the webinar is we will see the famous Dabbawala story, then introduction to Six Sigma and what is Six Sigma, then introduction to lean and its principles. So we will see this in the first 40 minutes, and then next 50 minutes we will see the detailed explanation of the steps of Lean Six Sigma, that is DMAC, and tools used in Six Sigma. So we will see this from the concept perspective, as I am not going to dwell much on the statistics. So request you to pay the attention for next 90 minutes.
So the first slide here is basically, all of you must have heard about Mumbai Dabbawalas. All of us are working in various organizations, or some of you are studying in reputed colleges. And being a professional, we are making so many mistakes, and all of us know that we are bound to make mistakes. We accept it. So look at the statistics I am sharing here about Mumbai Dabbawalas. They have started way back in 1890 and registered as charitable trust in around 1956. Look at the average literacy rate of 8th grade schooling. These slides have prepared from the details available at Wikipedia. So don't go with the data only. Of course, the numbers are very important, but try to understand the message from the story. They have a systematic approach during the working, and all of us could have seen it from the documentaries, movies, or maybe even in the Mumbai during the local time and etc. You see Dabbawalas are moving. So here you can see this in the slide that the employee strength is around 5,000 and the number of tiffins served around 2 lakh every day. So their data says that they have delivered one dabba wrongly in 8 million deliveries. That is my dabba to someone else. Then you will ask me why someone else's dabba is not given to me. They have arrested that tiffin as they have been asked to do so. If you see, the performance accuracy they are operating is around 99.99875%. What it means? That they are so perfect. What does it they have that makes them so perfect? If you see these two slides of Mumbai Dabbawalas, you will find some bullet points what I am showing here on the screen. They have only one leader and they all like are one family. They follow something as a blind methodology. Of course, they don't have any competition and they have been in the customer satisfaction, etc. But believe me, guys, in today's world, it is very, very rare. Then what we learn from the story of this Dabbawala, that we need an extra effort. We need an extra effort to bind all the employees together. So my next slide is about why any quality initiatives. So all the organizations see that they need the quality initiatives to bind all employees together. A supply chain management person talks with planning team and production team. Production team person can talk with quality and maintenance team member. Bigger organization needs an extra effort to bind all people together, not just as an output. Here comes a Lean Six Sigma. Let's see few examples of Lean Six Sigma. If you understand these examples, it means that you got an idea about the Lean Six Sigma. Let us go through it. If you see my next slide, all of us are using debit card, credit card, etc. Good few years back, credit card used to take around 1.5 months to come to you. Because you apply for it, there used to be a hard form of 4 to 5 pages and need to attach address proof, salary slip, iCard, this and that. Okay, somebody used to come at your residential address and verify it, and then you used to get a credit card. Of course, banking steps goes in the background. What has happened today? You get a credit card in less than a week. Don't go by the slides only. They are just made to give you an idea how the process was before and how is the process now. Now you are getting in a week because they have designed a new form. Your Aadhaar card and PAN card is attached, etc. Why I have given this example of credit card is, way back in 2000-2005, you get a card in those many days and now you are getting it so fast. What does it mean? Does the bank have started taking bigger risk? No, not at all. Then what makes you to get card faster? They have changed their process. They have made it faster with considering all preventive failure modes so that things will not go wrong. With this, we will move to the next example. So you can see here 2 columns on the slide, and this is about 2 suppliers, supplier 1 and supplier 2. They are supplying me the same product in the same rate and with the same quantity as well as quality. Okay, so imagine everything is same, nothing we do need to worry. So here is the data for how many days they are taking in their respective columns: 10/2, 8/25, 11/16, 13/4, 17/8, etc. So if you look at both the suppliers, what we will find it's a number of days taken to supply the batch. If I ask you the question, who is good supplier? You may say supplier 1, he has equally bad, he has never on time. If you say supplier 2, he is good at times he has given in 2 days and 4 days, etc. Well, let's enter to the some Six Sigma analysis. So here is the distribution for data. Distribution is nothing but it is a graphical representation, or it is a graphical curve fitment. In Six Sigma, many times you will come across the distribution. So this distribution curve for supplier 1 data, what does it mean? It has given the mean of 14.8 days. Let's plot for same graph for the supplier 2 data as well. What difference you will find in both these supplier data? Supplier 1 mean is coming 11.7 and for supplier 2 it is 14.8 on both sides. Guys, if you look at the spread of the curve for both graphs, it is quite different. Supplier 2 has more spread as compared to supplier 1. So look at the standard deviation here for both the suppliers. It is 4.9 for supplier 1 and 7.5 for supplier 2. So guys, keep in mind that customer feels variance, not only the mean or average. So in this case, you find the supplier 1 is good because his standard deviation is less than supplier 2. So here I want to park you guys at these two examples. Six Sigma is all about methodology which binds as initiative and brings people together in terms of correlating the output with input. It helps you to compare orange and apple in terms of sweetness, size, weight, etc. So with this, now we will move to the Six Sigma as a concept. So the Six Sigma is about a measure of quality, process for continuous improvement, and third as enabler to cultural change. So these are not just 3 lines, but these are 6 ways to look at the Six Sigma. So let's go through it one by one. First, we will have a measure of quality. Now what you see on the slide is a manufacturing example from steel rolling mill. Imagine that we are working in this industry which makes a steel sheet metal. Naturally there will be an expectation from customer, and he is expecting the sheet metal of that quality. He expects a specific thickness of the sheet. Here you come with the new word called as CTQ, which is nothing but critical to quality. Keep this in your mind as it will come again and again in the Lean Six Sigma. Okay, so customer says that he want a sheet thickness of 1000 unit. Being a manufacturer, we will say, oh no, come on, give me a tolerance or a range, as it is not possible to manufacture exact 1000 micron. Customer will say, okay, fine. Okay, I am fine with the sheet thickness of 950 to 1050 micron. Don't go beyond these limits. Imagine that we have started manufacturing the sheet metal as per the customer requirement. So here white dots are seeing on the screen are average of sheet thickness what we are producing or customer has measured at his end. Now I will draw a curve out of it. Though customer says he is okay between 950 to 1050, still we are producing below 950 and above 1050. What do you think? Does customer will accept those sheet metals? No, he will not accept it. It means that 950 lower specification limit and 1050 is the upper specification limit is acceptable, and beyond this is a scrap. This is where Six Sigma as measure of quality comes in picture to qualify the product or identify the defect. With this, now we will move to the next slide. So here you can see lower spec is a lower specification limit and upper spec is an upper specification limit. Here you can see plus or minus 1 sigma. Sigma is nothing but a standard deviation. So the standard deviation is the curve changes, where the curve changes its slope, okay, or it is a variation from the average basically. If you see in the table here, DPMO is nothing but defect per million opportunity. It is also noted as PPM, that is parts per million. Okay, so if your process is 1 sigma, look at the good area under the curve is 31% and DPMO 6,90,000. So if you improve your process at 2 sigma, look at the good area under the curve is increased up to 69% and the DPMO has drastically reduced to 3,08,000. If you improve your process at 3 sigma, look at the good area under the curve is now 93.3% and DPMO is 66,807. You are not stopping here, and again you improve your process. Now your process is, let's say, 4 sigma. Look at the good area under the curve is now 99.38% and DPMO is 6210. If you improve if your process is so controlled, look at the standard deviation, it is also coming down. So here I have highlighted this row for 4 sigma because it is the average industry level. Again, if you improve your process and go to the next level of sigma, that is 5 sigma, then look at the good area under the curve is now 99.977% and DPMO has drastically reduced to 233. Again, you are not stopping here and you have improved your process, and now your process is, let's say, 6 sigma. Look at the good area under the curve is now 99.99966% and DPMO is drastically gone down to 3.4. You should note here one more thing, that this blue line of x-axis and black line of the curve will never meet each other. They will be always parallel. They will run asymptotic to each other, hence there will not be exact zero defect. As you go ahead with 7 sigma, 8 sigma and so on, the DPMO will be 0.00000 something. It will not be exact zero. So the conclusion of this slide is, if your process is 6 sigma, then you will have only 3 defects in 1 million opportunity or 1 million parts. Let us see, does operating at 4 to 5 sigma is enough, or we should go for 6 sigma. Okay. So let's compare on various bases with the different scenarios. So the very first case, that arterial bypass surgery in an year at USA is around 5 million. If you say their hospitals are working at 4 to 5 sigma level, then they will have 5,000 surgery failure in a year. On the other side, if you say they are operating at 6 sigma level, then they will have only 17 surgery failure in a year. So the second case is, as per Federal Air Aviation Traffic, aircraft takeoff each year is around 1.61 million. If you consider that they are operating between 4 to 5 sigma level, then every year around 16,100 flights will be aborted. Whereas if they operate at 6 sigma level, then only 55 flights will be aborted. If you see the train accidents in a year with operating at sigma level 4 to 5 will be around 180, and with 6 sigma level it will be less than 1 per year. So the next is, if you see unsafe drinking water scenarios from 15 minutes each day to a very few seconds per day. Okay. So now see the last scenario of visa issued to dangerous person. If you consider with 4 to 5 sigma level, then it will come to issuing a visa to 50 persons. Imagine how dangerous it could be. Whereas with 6 sigma, it will be almost none. So the conclusion, if you are into the comparison mode, in percentage are quite different. For example, if you are comparing one component sold in million or one component in 100, in 100 if you have 10 defects, then you will say that you have 10% defect. But in 1 million, if you have 10% defect, then imagine how many defects you will have. So the Six Sigma brings everybody on one platform of a million, that is DPMO. What you see on this slide is the same thing again. How sigma capability goes up, then defects will get reduced. Of course we want zero defect, but the curve will not cross the x-axis, so there will not be zero defect, but its approach towards zero defect. With this, let us see Six Sigma as a process for continuous improvement. Okay, if you have the process of the target or it is within the target, but you have a lot of wastage, that is you have the excessive variation with the spread of curve. So you have to make two changes. You need to reduce the spread and center the process. This is where whole statistics of the Six Sigma lies. Make process centered and or reduce the variation. As customer feels variation through product performance, it follows a systematic approach for solving the problem. This uses two methodology. So the first methodology is DMADV, that is define, measure, analyze, design and verify. Mainly this method is used for product or process design where we do not have anything to compare with. The researchers are mainly using it. Most of the patent and all the intellectual property of the organization comes between analyze and design phase. The second methodology is all about DMAIC, that is define, measure, analyze, improve and control. This method is used to improve the existing process or state. It may be a performance, reliability, durability, etc. And this methodology we are going to see in today's webinar called DMAIC. Let's understand the DMAIC with a different approach. This slide which you are seeing on the paper, Lessons Learned at General Electric by Dr. Tansen. He has shared this in our Green Belt certification. So all the rights are reserved with him only. We will just learn from it. No harm to anyone. It is typical on Indian context. Just imagine we all are traveling in a bus from Pune to Mumbai, which is coming from backside. As bus come around one of the signal, you see an accident. A car is banged on backside by a truck. Naturally, as an anxiety to see what has happened in accident, we get out of the bus. So the very first question comes in our mind is kya hua? What has happened? So who will answer this? Who has witnessed it or who met with an accident? Okay. Whether we get answer or not, we go on asking the next question. Kuch laga to nahi? Means does anybody have scratches, fracture, etc. Being a human, we are not stopping here. Next question comes in mind, kaise hua? How did it happen? Oh, looks like car fellow has not given indicator or truck fellow was driving from the middle and etc. So you are trying to understand how this has happened. Now you are not stopping here, going in suggestion mode. ऐसे करना चाहिए था. Whom you are going to tell this? Whoever will be near to you. Next question comes in mind. अगले टाइम से मैं ऐसे करूंगा. So you are concluding yourself. Believe me, if you are asking these questions, you need not go to learn Six Sigma. You are following the Six Sigma approach DMAIC, that is define, measure, analyze, improve and control. Look at this, define. You are trying to see kya hua, मेजर कुछ लगा तो नहीं, and so on. Okay. With this, we will move to the third case of Six Sigma as an enabler change. If I say cultural change, it means that the way we work on any problem, it is the method of calling, understanding and debating as well. Keep in mind that the common understanding of a problem is more important than working on it. So here you can see the difference between before Six Sigma and after Six Sigma. So the Six Sigma will help you for a sustainable growth. This is all about the concept and introduction of the Six Sigma. I hope you are clear with the understanding of up till now. Let us gear up for the next introduction of lean. So what is lean? It is about cutting down or eliminating all types of the waste. This concept lean is delivered by Toyota. So lean is understood as a business transformation methodology. In other words, it is a strategy for maximizing the value to the customer. It talks about continuous improvement and employee participation, employee engagement. With this, we will move to some principles of lean production. So here you can see the house of lean production with pillars like just-in-time, Heijunka and Jidoka. These are Japanese terms and there are the definitions to it. We will be seeing all those things. So the very first is just-in-time. All of us have heard about it. It means you have to deliver what customer wants and when they want it. So just-in-time means whoever you want it, then you have to give it. It has three sub-elements like single piece flow, pull loop and takt time. Takt time indicates how much time should be spent to manufacture one piece or one part. Okay. So with this just-in-time will help you on the inventory turns. Then second is Heijunka. It means sequencing and level loading. It helps you for stability of the process. Let us take an example. When you have to go to customer care of a mobile company, at the entry you get a token for the reason you are visiting the care. It is because they want to process sequentially and also they want to make the level loading of a person who is handling the counter. Okay. So the Heijunka will help you to look at the cycle time. Now the third concept is here Jidoka. Jidoka means stopping of a machine at every abnormality. So Jidoka will help you for stopping to create defective product. Jidoka will also help you on the cost of poor quality or cost of quality, as you might be aware about the rule of 10x for the cost of poor quality. So this cost of quality will be taken care if you have machines which stops at any abnormality. Okay, now we will move to the next concept. It is about maximizing the value to the customer. So here you can see two terms, value added and non-value added. Let us take an example from the manufacturing for better understanding. All of us have worked on the lathe machine. Let us assume you have to reduce the shaft size by 3 mm. So the actual turning operation will add the value to component, whereas making job true with respect to spindle will be supportive activity, and waiting for raw material or searching for vernier caliper, tool, etc. will be a non-value added activity. So guys, keep in mind that the activity or any activity that changes forms, fitment or function of a material or information for the customer, or the other activity for which customer is willing to pay you, is a value added activity. If you see in any industry, only 3 to 5% activities are value added, then around 35% activities are supportive activity. These cannot be eliminated but can be optimized. You see here in the yellow color, these are the supportive activity, and rest are the non-value added activity, those to be eliminated. So here you can see in the red color. Okay, so this is about the value added and non-value added. So the next is 7 types of the waste. Team wood. So these 7 wastes are classified due to people, quantity and quality. We will see these waste in brief. So the first waste is here transportation. From the team wood, it is transportation. It could be within the floor or a plant or in between the plant. You need an equipment for the transportation which includes the possibility of damage while handling in transportation, isn't it? Second is inventory. You don't want to block your capital as well as the space. Also there will be a risk of obsolescence. Okay. Third is motion. You should not have the unnecessary motion of peoples for any operation. It will affect on your labor efficiency as well as the cycle time. Ergonomic considerations will also come under this motion. Fourth is waiting. All of us know that we as a customer don't want to wait. Then why you should have a product waiting? It will increase your lead time. Okay. So the fifth is overproduction. This will tie up your working capital and also occupies the floor space. So you should reduce or minimize this overproduction. Then sixth waste is overprocessing. It will increase the opportunity for defect, guys. This doesn't add any value to customer and creates unnecessary delay. Okay. And the last waste is seventh, defect. If you see, the waste due to quality is a defect. It means you had to eliminate or reduce the defects and improve your process. So without stretching much on this point, we will move to the next slide. 5 years as a visual management. I am not going to dwell upon this point as I have already taken one webinar on 5 years for 1 hour. So you can see it on the YouTube. Those who want the link, they can ping in comment box. We will provide the link. Okay. We will see the next. Now we are entered in the heart of lean manufacturing, that is value stream mapping. Why I said like this? Because a Toyota house of production is very important. Then we saw value added and non-value added activity is also important. Then again 5 years and 7 types of waste are very important. But all these tools, where do I use it or get into applying phase? This is where a value stream map comes in picture. So value stream map is an end-to-end process. Map is nothing but activity flow like A to B, B to C, C to D, etc. Then stream is nothing but a guided motion of activity. So the value stream mapping will give you a clear understanding of material and process flow. It measures time and waste. It is a real-time snapshot of your process. It also gives you a production lead time and processing lead time as well. But keep in mind that you need to have to make a VSM, that is value stream map, in a cross-functional team, as it is end-to-end process. Okay, you should have the customer, you should have the supplier, etc. When you see on the screen, here it is a typical VSM. So here In the right hand side at the top corner, you can see the customer demand is 150 pieces per day. This information is given to the central production scheduling and controlling department through electronic information flow 4 weeks before. The central production planning and control department gives order to the supplier. Then you can see supplier provides the raw material as per the frequency every day or once in a 2 day. Here you see the pull loop for the child component for assembly purpose. Then this is aux nothing but a leveled production. Okay, it is leveling. Then material flow starts from machining to assembly to test to packing and then dispatch with a defined inventory in between. And here you can see the material is delivered to customer in 5 trucks per day. Guys, concentrate on the bottom portion of the VSM. What you are seeing here, 2 days step, then 10 minute step, then 1 day step, then 55 minute. This is a core part of VSM. Why I am saying? Because the values given here 10, 55, 5 minutes are real value adding time. What you see here in the bracket is total lead time of 5.9 days and process time is 120 minutes. So imagine almost in 6 days only 2 hours are value added activity for which your customer is going to pay. So in the VSM, the information flows from the customer to supplier, that is from right to left, and product moves from supplier to customer, that is from left to right. Now what is to be done with the value stream map? So value stream map is nothing but a current status of your process. In a meeting involving with all the stakeholders, you have to find out the Kaizen flashes and identify the projects for non-value added activities to be removed. Okay, so identify the project to eliminate this non-value added activity that will help you to simplify your process. For example, quick changeover projects for cycle time reduction, or pull loop implementation projects for inventory reduction, etc. Then it will become your future value stream called VSD, that is value stream design. Okay, so don't think value stream is more complicated. It is the easiest way of showing your current status. The picture here you are seeing on the screen is the symbols used to draw the value stream map. So you can see there are so many symbols. Later on you see all the symbols. Here I will tell you few symbols only. So you can see the symbol for FIFO, which means first in first out. That is, if you have purchased material on today and yesterday, it means that you have to process the material which you have received yesterday is first, so that first in first out will be followed. Then aux is nothing but level loading. We have seen it in Heijunka. Then third is Kaizen flash. So the Kaizen is nothing but change for betterment. So small improvement can be considered under Kaizen. For example, if you have pasted a sticker as drinking water on your water bottle, or if you have started using one side paper for printing instead of 2 side blank papers, etc. So these all about the introduction of the Lean. With this, we will move to the Lean Six Sigma as a methodology together. I hope that now you are very much clear about the concept of Lean and Six Sigma. As I already mentioned you that gone the days where we used to use Six Sigma and Lean separately. Now we don't have much luxury time for it, so the Lean Six Sigma together we need to apply. And here comes a most awaited slide of the webinar, on Lean Six Sigma. So guys, you are able to see my slide on Lean Six Sigma as a LSS steps. Okay. Remember, this slide is the methodology of Lean Six Sigma. So there are 5 stages of DMAIC, that is DMAIC, and each stage is again classified in 3 steps. The question arises in your mind that do you need to learn all the 15 steps? The answer is yes. The next question in your mind may come that do I need to use all the tools shown here in the box? The answer is no, not necessary. So here in the toolbox is, you can see the italic tools are the Lean tools and regular are the Six Sigma tools. So let's get started with the define phase. So the first step is to identify the customer and project CTQ. What is CTQ? Critical to quality. And customer is expecting out of process or product. Then here comes another word, customer. Who is the customer? In our professional life, we came across various customers like internal customer who could be performing the next operation or next function, or maybe external customer, or it can be a end customer. Consider a tier 3 organization makes nut and bolt. It supplies to tier 2 and tier 2 supply to tier 1 and tier 1 supplies to OEMs and OEM to the end customer. Do you think that the manufacturer of nut and bolt should understand the requirements of the end customer? No, not required also. So this Six Sigma methodology guides you to understand that who is my customer. Okay. The second step is developing the team charter. What is the understanding about charter? Charter is nothing but a scheme of executing something systematically. There will be a team, roles and responsibilities. There will be deadlines and there will be scope and milestone as well. There will be risk also identified. Third step is in the define is process map. What will be my high level process? Who is supplier, who is customer, etc. So one more point here I have written in bold letter is obtain key business stakeholders sign off. After third stage, you need to have clear approval, because if you are not having clear approval in the beginning for what you are going to work or for what you are working, then at the end of project your all efforts will go in the waste. So this is why in define phase is very critical and important. So the first step of design, you have to collect the voice of customer, and then you have to drill down it to the CTQ. So before going to the voice of customer, let us understand Kano model. So here you can see on the x-axis you have offerings, and on the y-axis you have customer satisfaction. If you see here is the curve as a must be. Consider an example of buying a car to understand the Kano model. So when you enter in the showroom, you ask to show a better car which will give you good mileage and comfort, etc. You never say give me a car which will have one steering, two headlights, four wheels, one stepney, etc. What it means, these features are must be features. There is one center line showing more is better. It means either the car is more the cheaper, more the better, or if it gives you more mileage, lesser maintenance, it means more the better, and this is a performance characteristics. Okay, then here comes the third curve of delight. Like car sales executive will say, sir, buy my car, we will give you 2 years insurance of a car free, or we will give you a seat cover free, etc. So all these are the delights from the customer. What scientist Keno said, if you ask the customer, do you want must be features, then he will be getting dissatisfied. Imagine that you ask the customer, do you want a car which will have one steering, two headlight, four wheel, one stepney? He will run away. If tell the customer about more is the better performance features, customer may answer your questions. And if you are telling him about delighted features, what free you are going to give him, what are the options available like loan, then he will be very happy. Does it mean that you are giving him the delighted features and not giving the must be features? Will it work? No, it will not work. So what is the conclusion? Must be features are not spoken, but it should be there. Then performance features, more is the better. And third, delighted features makes customer happy. There is one more axis across this delighted and must be features, which is called the time passes. The delighted features will become the must be feature as the time goes on. For example, seat covers are the must be features nowadays. So with the understanding of Keno model, we will move to the next slide, that is voice of customer. Let us understand with the same example. Customer says he want a better car which will have more mileage. So all these statements of customer which are either qualifying or non-qualifying. Voice of the customer is what they want to be, it qualifiable or non-qualifiable. What is Six Sigma says, you get a voice of customer, it is your duty to drill down it in CTQ. So the defined phase says, if customer have not told you specifically what they want, gather the voice of customer. Let's move to the second step of define, team charter. So the team charter will be a summary of your defined phase. What is your project goal? What are the measurable CTQs? Who is your team member? What milestone you want to achieve? And what will be the investment, etc. Here you can see I have dedicated one quadrant for risk and issues as well. Okay. So this is about the team charter. Let's move to the third step of define. So look at this process. Supplier is S, input is I, P is the process, O is the output, C is the customer, SIPOC is a process flow, and COPIS is a process thinking. So define phase guides you for what is the output, who is my customer, what would be the input for particular project, and who is the supplier for this. So this will help you to correlate your output, that is Y, to the input, that is X. Now having understood the problem, process and customer, you need to work on it. As earlier I told you, need to work out with the cross-functional team members. As you all know, if I have given you one problem to work out, then I will work on that by 24/7 and complete it. But if you have to get the work done from others, it is very difficult. That is why managers are paid more. Jokes apart, this is why the CAP tool is important. CAP is nothing but a change acceleration process. When there is a change, always there is a resistance. You all know it. So we are not going to learn these tools in detail, but I just wanted to introduce about the CAP tools. So the very first tool is in and out of the frame. This is used to define the scope of your project. Are you going to boil the ocean or just a pot of water? Next tool is threat versus opportunity. Is it a threat to my business in short term and opportunity in long term, or vice versa? The next tool is ARMI. This tool helps you to understand the stakeholders analysis. Okay. The fourth tool is GRPI. It will help you to work in a team. And the last tool is RASIC matrix. Responsible, approver, supportive, then informative and consulted. This matrix will help out you when you are working on a global project or in a bigger cross-functional team, as every team member will have a different reporting managers. Okay, so this is about the CAP tools. I have given only slide information. Okay, so we are not going in the detail of this CAP tools. As if you go in the black belt certification or green belt certification, you will understand more from this CAP tools. Okay, so with this, let us see now the second phase of DMAC, that is measure. Again, measure will have 3 steps. So the first step is select CTQ characteristics, where you have to identify the measurable CTQ that you will improve. For example, if I say speed is a CTQ, then how will measure the speed? Like, so here there are some tools like QFD, then FMEA or process map to identify the measurable CTQs. Then second step in define is a performance standard. It will determine and confirm specification limits for your output. Keep in mind, specification limit for output, that is Y. It means pass or fail, good or bad, or in case of continuous data there will be lower specification limit and upper specification limit, that is USL and LSL, etc. And the last step is measurement system analysis. What is measurement? Measurement will be used to measure length, width, thickness, height, weight, or it may be go, no go, pass, fail, etc. When I say system, it means the scale by which I am measuring something and operator who is measuring it. So keep in mind that in measure step, statistical problem is defined. Okay, so now we will see the QFD tool for selecting characteristics. QFD means quality function deployment. Let's say customer wants a performance of his car to be improved. He has not spelled out what is performance. It is our duty to spell out. So this QFD tool will help you to listen the voice of the customer and ask appropriate questions to him. Okay. It also helps you to correlate many things together. So there are 9 elements of the QFD. What does customer want is what? How much is important that to customer? How do you satisfy his wants? Then relationship matrix, technical importance, how much target value, completeness check, etc. So QFD is to be done with a customer and a neutral person together in a team. Let's take an example. Customer says he wants good mileage of a petrol car. Here, in what you have to write the customer requirements like low level fuel consumption, then second sufficient durability, third reliability operation, fourth engine displacement, fifth low supplier price, etc. In the second column, you have to put the customer importance rating in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here in the house, you have to write how you are going to meet customer requirement. For example, engine weight, compression ratio, emission level, maximum value of engine torque, reliability of engine aggregates, average value of fuel consumption, etc. Then next, fourth is the relationship matrix. Here you have to relate a what with house. There could be a multiple house related to what and multiple what related to how. For example, lower supplier price of what will relate to many house like engine weight, then reliability of engine aggregates, average value of fuel consumption, etc. Another case, consider engine weight from how will relate with engine displacement, lower supplier price, then low level of fuel consumption, etc. According to the relationship, we have to put the numbers like 9, 3, 1, etc. If there is no any relation, you can put directly 0 or keep it blank. Excel will automatically consider it as a 0. Now, the row of what from correlation will get multiplied with customer importance and summation will be displayed in the completeness check. Similarly, the column of how will get multiplied with customer importance and summation will be displayed in technical importance. In the sixth element of how much, you have to write the target value of that parameter. For example, engine weight target value is, let's say, 75 kg. Compression ratio target value is 10.5:1. Then engine durability target value is 0.2 million kilometer. Then emission level, it is BS6 standard, like this way. Okay. So in target direction, you have to put the arrow showing how that house will improve. For example, engine weight and emission level you want to reduce, so you can put arrow in the downward direction. Then engine durability you want to increase, so you can put the arrow in upward direction. So here is the roof of this QFD, which will help you to correlate the one house with together with another house. Are you clear with this QFD? Okay. So these yellow color parameters are more important than this roof of the QFD. Okay. So now we will move to the next slide of the QFD flow down. So this QFD one needs to keep doing it. You will give until and unless you get a measurable CTQ. So here you see 1, 2, 3, 4. In previous slide we have seen QFD, how QFD is done. On the y-axis you have to put what, and on the x-axis you have to put house. And here is the correlation. When you go to the next house, this how will become what here, then you have to figure out the next house here. Again, if you go to the next house, this house will become what, and again you have to figure out new house, and so on. How many iterations you need to do it? Until you get a measurable CTQ. If you get measurable CTQ in second house, then you can stop there. Let's learn the type of data now. As you can see on the screen, there are two types of data. One is discrete data and another is continuous data. The discrete data is also called as attribute data. This will have only two values. For example, pass, fail, go, no go, good, bad, accurate, not accurate, etc. This continuous data is also called as a variable data. For example, length, width, height, weight, etc. Anything that is measured on a continuous scale, cycle time is also a continuous data. So now we will move to the third step of measure, that is measurement system analysis. So we will see the discrete data first. For discrete data we need to use kappa analysis. Let's see how to perform the kappa analysis. Consider we have taken 30 reference part with a reference value, then 3 appraiser and 3 trials each. Okay, so the rating category will be 0 for not okay and 1 for okay part. You have to note it down the opinion of the appraisers A, B, C in 3 trials. Now we will see the formula for kappa value, that is K value. The formula is observed non-random agreements to the possible non-random agreements. So here in this case you will have possible non-random agreements will be 270. After that you have to compare these 270 ratings with reference value. This work will be done by Minitab also, and directly you will get the value of K. If you have the value of K greater than or equal to 0.9, then your measurement system is capable. If it is between 0.7 to 0.9, then your measurement system is conditionally capable. And if it falls below 0.7, then your measurement system is not capable. So this is about the measurement system analysis for the discrete data. Now we will see the measurement system capability for the continuous data or a variable data. This measurement system capability is also called as gauge repeatability and reproducibility. So before starting for the GRR study, that is gauge repeatability and reproducibility, you should look at the few parameters of measurement system. So the first is accuracy. It is the difference between observed average measurement and a standard. Then second is resolution. It is nothing but a smallest scale of the measurement, that is least count. Then third is stability. Does the measurement changes with respect to time? Then fourth is linearity. Is measurement system proportional to the magnitude of that sample? Let's say we want to measure the value from 5, 150, 500, then that one measurement scale is capable to measure all these 3 things. You should see in the linearity like this way. And the last is precision. It consists of repeatability and reproducibility. So the repeatability is nothing but it is a variation when one person repeatedly measure the same unit with same measurement equipment. Okay, so this repeatability refers to the equipment variation, EV. Then there is reproducibility. It is a variation when 2 or more person repeatedly measures the same unit with the same measuring equipment. And this reproducibility refers to appraiser variation, that is AV. Let's take an example of the sheet metal thickness which we have already seen. So the customer wanted the sheet metal of thickness between 950 to 1050. Consider 10 samples for GRR measurement. Consider appraiser A, B, C comes these samples in 2 trials and record the below reading in the table as shown here in the table. Okay, if you see the formula for percentage GRR is 5.15 into sigma measurement upon tolerance into 100. So here you will say from where this 5.15 came. So it is all about considering 95% confidence interval. So here it is considered as 5.15. You can consider or you can take it as a 5.17 or 5.20 as per your application. Okay, as we are learning this Six Sigma as a concept basis, so we are not going to dwell up more upon the statistics perspective. There is tool called Minitab which will help you for the statistics. So need not worry about the any formula or what Minitab does in the background, etc. You can download a free version of Minitab for 1 month and try using it. I mean, why to reinvent the wheel? Okay. So for GRR of measurement thickness readings, you can use Minitab, or there are many Excel sheets available in open literature on Google. So here you can see the result of this test. So keep in mind that if percentage GRR is less than 10%, it means your measurement system is capable. I am saying measurement system. It means your equipment as well as operator together. If percentage GRR is greater than 10 and less than 30, it means your measurement system is conditionally capable. And if percentage GRR is greater than 30, it means your measurement system is not capable. So remember the capability criteria of measurement system. This ends our measurement system. So now we will move to the next phase of DMAC, that is analyze phase. In analyze phase, the statistical problem is defined. Again, this analyze phase is divided in 3 phases or 3 steps. So the first step of analysis, establish process capability. So what is today's process capability of the process? Establish a current process capability as a baseline. So the process capability can be denoted by CP, CPK or Z score. So here in this webinar we are going to use as a Z score. Second step is define performance objective. For example, my process capability is G equals to, let's say, 3.5. So I want to improve it from 3.5 sigma to 6 sigma. But in one go it is very difficult to achieve it. So I am setting a target to achieve the value of G as 5 in the first step. So the statistical goal is, if your project will be implemented, you want to achieve the process capability of 5. And the next step is identify variation sources. As I already told you, in Lean Six Sigma you want to relate your output to input in order to maximize your output, or you want to optimize it. In terms of it you want to find out what are the input parameters that are affecting to your output basically. From that angle you want to identify all the variation in sources. Let's get into the process capability. In our slide of what is Six Sigma as a process for continuous improvement, you have seen a process of target and excessive variation. So you need to make a centered process and reduce the spread as customer feels the variation. So here you can see the process is centered but spread is more. So you will have high probability of defect on the both side of the spec limits. It means low G score. G score is a process capability. Then you come to the excellent process. It is good, centered as well as less spread, well inside USL and LSL. It means that very low probability of defect. It means high value of Z. Such process will be ideal process. So here you can see the formula for G, which I have mentioned as Z is equal to mod of USL or LSL minus mean or target upon standard deviation. As you know that G is the area under the curve, so it will not be negative at any case. So the mod is used for the formula. So this G score is with respect to the specification limits who has given by customer. The mean or target and standard deviation comes from the product or process behavior. Okay. Unless your customer tells you to use the target for process capability, you use a mean value to calculate the Z score. Okay. Let us see this, our process currently. So the lower specification limit is 950 and upper spec limit is 1050 as given by customer, and 1000 is a target value. So the process mean has came around 1010, okay, and standard deviation is at 21. Let us see the Z value for LSL. Z is equal to mod of LSL, that is 950 minus mean 1010 divided by standard deviation 21. So Z LSL will come 2.86. okay. Now we will calculate Z USL. So Z is equal to mod of USL, that is 1050 minus mean, that is 1010 divided by standard deviation 21. So Z USL will come 1.90. So now we will see the probability of defects in the next slide. keep the values of Z in mind. So this Z table is similar to our log table, that is logarithmic table and stream table, which we used in degree. Quickly we will see how values can be seen. So Z LSL was 2.86. So look at the Z column, where is the 2.8. So here is the 2.8. Once you get a row of 2.8, then find the column for 0.06. Then you will get a probability of defect as 2.12 into e raised to minus 3. It means 0.00212. Now we will see for ZUSL. It was 1.90. Okay. So look at the Z column for 1.9. Once you get row of 1.9, then you have to find out the column for 0.00. Then here you will get a probability of defect as 2.87 into e raised to minus 2. It means that 0.0287. So if you add this total area outside the specification limit, it will be 0.0308. It means that our process is creating 3.08% defective product. So this is about the process capability for the continuous data. Now we will see in the next slide for a discrete data. So again, discrete data is like go, no go, pass, fail, etc. So look at how process capability is measured for the discrete data through an example. So far it is easier and faster to understand, so we will take it from the manufacturing side only. So imagine that we have to manufacture a operation of punching. We have a circular plate of blue color and we need to punch 8 holes at a time, keep in mind on it. Imagine that black holes are defects. So how many units we have? Unit is nothing but number of parts or sub assembly or assembly or system inspected or tested. Okay, so each blue circular plate is a 1 unit. So the defects per unit dpu is equal to d upon u, that is 3 by 3 is equal to 1. So defects per unit is 1. How many opportunities? Opportunity is nothing but characteristics you want to inspect or test. So the each circle is a 1 opportunity. So 8 opportunities per unit. So the total opportunity will now come as a, so the total opportunity will be 3 into 8, 24. How many defects? Defect is nothing but anything and everything that results in a non-conformance or customer dissatisfaction. So each black circle is a defect. So the defect per opportunity, that is DOP, is equal to 3 divided by 24 is equal to 0.125. So now we will calculate the defect per million opportunity, that is DPMO. So DPMO is equals to DPO into 10 lakh. So it will come around 1,25,000. So the Minitab will help you to convert this DPMO in terms of the Z score. So you need not worry about it. You have to open your Minitab and you have to give the DPMO value, then automatically you will get a G score for the discrete data. Okay, so this is about the G score. Now we will move to the second step of analyze. It is about defining the performance objective. So what is the baseline? It is nothing but a current level of performance. So let us say your current process is 3.7 sigma. So 3.7 is a baseline for you, and you want to achieve a performance of world class level called benchmark. Let's say benchmark is for your process is 6 sigma. So as I already told you, it is very difficult to improve your process from directly 3.7G to 6G. So you have to set an intermediate goal to achieve within a stipulated time period, called it as a entitlement. So let's say achieving G score of 5 is your entitlement target. Okay, so baseline gives you a current measurement to monitor the process while benchmark sets you as an ultimate goals. So idea is here to find out what factors are causing my process variation. You can see the funnel diagram on the screen, how the input factors, that is x's, are drilled down to the critical axis. So in analyze phase we have to find out those x's which are affecting your output, and here comes a hypothesis testing. In the flow chart you can see how practical problem is defined in measure phase, then statistical problem is defined in analyze phase, then statistical solution is developed in improve phase, and in the last phase in control practical solution is implemented. So this slide is taken from Dr. Tansen's training material. As I already told you that we are looking as a concept perspective, so we will not go in the details of the statistics. Okay, so here just we will see what is a hypothesis testing. We will go in depth, we will not go in depth, sorry. It is a tool in which we will assume something, of course, with a 95% confidence level and 5% risk. So here you can compare two types of hypothesis, asking are they different. So the null hypothesis say there is no difference, and alternate hypothesis says there is a difference. So here p value is nothing but probability of making type 1 error. Now we will see what is type 1 error and type 2 error. Okay, it is somewhat confusing, so we will understand through typical judiciary example. X-axis tells you about the reality or truth, y-axis talks about the decision given by the court. So the null hypothesis, that is HO, is a individual is not guilty, and alternate hypothesis HA is individual is guilty. So the x-axis is not guilty and guilty. Okay, understood everyone? So correspondingly y-axis is what is the verdict given by the judge. Individual is innocent, should be set free, and guilty to be jailed. So y-axis is set free and to be jailed. Okay, understood guys? See, so if I am not guilty and the decision is given by the court is set free, it means that correct decision. Are you clear? Okay, what another correct decision? If individual is guilty and decision given by the court is to be jailed. Okay, so these are the two correct decisions. Still there are two other possibilities. What are those? An individual is guilty and set free, it means that type 2 error, beta error. And another is if individual is not guilty and to be jailed, it means type 1 error, that is alpha error. What judiciary system says that if you are making type 2 error, it is okay. It means that today if guilty is made set free, it is okay, because tomorrow he can be caught. But you should not have type 1 error, or you should have type 1 error very minimum. That is, an individual is not guilty, should not be jailed. Okay, that is why our judiciary system tells what it means. If type 1 error and type 2 error are together 100%, then you are ready to take a risk of 5%. So the Six Sigma says I am ready to take 5% risk and being not guilty to be jailed and 95% guilty to be set free. Okay, so I think you are clear with hypothesis testing. Now we will move to the next phase of DMA-IC, that is improve. So in improve phase we find out the statistical solution. Keep in mind, again there are 3 steps in improve. So the first step of improve is screening of potential causes. So here we want to determine vital few x's that are causing changes in y. Okay, so the next step is discover variable relationship. So Here you need to establish the transfer function between y and vital few axis. Determine optimal setting for vital few axis and perform confirmation run. Okay, so the third step is need to establish the operating tolerances on vital few axis. Keep in mind on vital few axis so that your output will be controlled. Okay, so in improve phase we will be running through one big concept called DOE, that is design of experiments. What is experiment? It is nothing but anything as a combination. Okay, so we often use this word in our day-to-day life, or I can say we do experiments in our day-to-day life as well. So let's take an example of making a tea. The process of making the tea every day is same, but still we do not get the same taste on every day. Why? Because the quantity of tea, sugar, water and milk we are taking, this varies every day. Okay, we are not keeping it as a constant. Also there may be a boiling time and temperature variation, correct? So what it means, naturally there will be a variations, so we want to constrain these variations. So in DOE is a function of x, so these x's are critical input parameters and y is the output. For example, if I ask my friend when we should have a dinner and they say today around 8:30 to 9 p.m. So 8:30 will be LSL and 9:30 will be ESL. It means it has a 2 level. Can we have 3 levels? Yes, 8:30, 8:45 and 9. We can have 6 levels as well. Yes, it is possible. In DOE, most of the time OFAT approach is used. It means that one factor at a time will be varying and other are kept constant. There are 3 types of DOE: screening DOE, factorial DOE and higher order DOE. For easy understanding, we will take factorial DOE first. Let's say we are performing DOE for 3 factors A, B, C. So A, B, C are called as a main effect. Then AB, BC, AC is a 2-way interaction. Then ABC is a 3-way interaction. If you have one factor and 2 levels, it means you have 2 possible ways of experiments. Okay, all you might be knowing about the permutation and combination, so I will not go in the statistics. If you have 2 factors and 2 levels, it means that you have 4 possible ways, 2 raised to 2. If you have 3 factors and 2 levels, it means that you have 8 possible ways. Okay, 2 raised to 3. It means that level raised to factor will be a number of possible ways for experimentation. So in full factorial you have to work on all the possible experimentations, whereas in half factorial you have to work on half of the possible experimentation. Okay, so as in case of more factors, then it is very difficult to do the factorial DOE, so that the screening DOE is used. In screening DOE only used to study the main effect, keep in mind. Okay, so this all the details of this design of experiments will be studied in master black belt or black belt. So here we are just briefing it. Okay, so where we were on the screening DOE. Okay, so this is used to study only the main effects. Then in higher order DOE, Box-Benken is used when it is not possible to work out with the extreme points of the axis. For example, if you say you want to check the performance of your vehicle on the speed of 0 km/h or the on stop speed, okay, then it is very difficult to take the experiments on the road conditions unless and until you go in the specified labs. Okay, so in such cases Box-Benken design DOE is used. Here we are not going to in the detail of this. As I told you, it is a huge topic of DOE. So this will require you at for green belt or black belt certifications. So here just keep in mind that this is used for creating the transfer function of y is equals to f of x. Okay, so if you have only 3 to 4 x's, then guys it is not necessary to perform DOE also. Okay, so we'll move to the next third step of the improve, that is establish operating tolerances. So after having a transfer function, you have to set the target value for y and x's. Here you have got the LSL and USL on y from the customer. So here you have to derive an internal specification limits on y from the transfer function of y, and x's as you have identified a optimum solution with varying the x's. So you have to put the operating tolerances on x's. These specification limits are made tighter by an amount equal to 3 times of the gauge's standard deviation for the both x and y. Okay, so the main output output of improve phase is setting a tolerance on x's. Okay, so keep this in mind. So with this, now we will move to the last phase of DMA IC, that is control. So control will give you a practical solution for your problem. Again, this control has 3 steps. First is validate measurement of x. In this step number 6 or in step number 6 or in measure phase, we have learned the measurement system analysis for y. So this Lean Six Sigma drive is used to relating the output to input. Okay, so here also you will have the discrete data and continuous data as well as gauge GRR. In second step, determining process capability. Remember guys, in analyze phase we have established process capability, and here you need to determine the process capability. So how much process capability has improved, that you need to find out. And the last step is implement process control. When I say process control, it is all about documentation, coming on conclusion of everything. As we have seen the tools like GRR and process capability in measure and analyze phase, so I am not going to repeat this. Let's go to the tool used for the control phase. As we done with everything, we have got the solution, we have to implement it, then why do we want to control it? Okay, so let's take an example that a successful bypass surgery has happened. Why still doctor keeps you in the hospital for a couple of days? Because an individual is observed for any abnormality. This is why control phase is. Okay, so the control chart are the part of a statistical process control, SPC. Here you can see in the graph UCL and LCL. So don't get confused with UCL, LCL and USL, LSL. So this upper control limit and lower control limits are derived from the process variation, whereas specification limits are determined by customer needs, or it is given by the customer. Okay, so this is about the control chart. Now we will see the mistake proofing. So this slide is about mistake proofing. As you can come out with the improved process, so how will you make it mistake proofing? For example, you have a water dispenser, the cool water you have blue color and hot water has a red color. If you want cool water, then as soon as you push the tap, immediately cool water will come. But this will not be the case in case of the hot water. There will be one added extra operation for hot water tap. That is a mistake proofing. Okay, so the second example is of biometric door. To eliminate the error of people forgetting their password, an alternate method uses biometric such as fingerprint or retinal scans. as a replacement to verify their identity. Okay, and third example is of a Poka for drilling machine. Okay, so if you implement the mistake proofing devices, then it is not necessary to use control chart as well. So this is about the DMA IC phases. Okay, so quickly we will go through the revision what we have seen in this webinar on Lean Six Sigma. So we started with the Mumbai Dabbawala story. What is the performance level they are operating and why there is a need for extra effort to bind all the employees together. Okay, so then we have seen the two examples of credit card and two suppliers. Okay, then we went on the introduction of Six Sigma. So Six Sigma is a measure of quality, then process of continuous improvement and enabler for the cultural change. Okay, so we saw the example of steel thickness from the steel rolling mill. Okay, then we saw various levels of DPMO. Okay, then we saw the process for continuous improvements. Okay, how the spread will be reduced and process to be made centered. Then we have seen DMA DV for product or design phase. Okay, then DMA IC for the improvement. Okay, then we went on the introduction to the lean with Toyota production house, then value added and non value added activity, then waste elimination, then VSM tool we have seen. Okay, and then we entered in the LSS. Okay, so the Lean Six Sigma is having a 5 steps which we have seen in the details. Okay, so I will be sharing the PPTs, so keep reading or referring it. So with this I will thank you for your patience listening. If you have any questions or any doubt, you can write us in the comment box. We will get back to you. Okay, so with this, thanks a lot.